Thanks for having me,
Hi.
Debbie.
Oh, you're
Oh,
so welcome.
hi. There you go.
Hi, this is Caroline Leavitt. I'm the co-founder of A Mighty Blaze, along with Jenna Blum, the book initiative that began during lockdown to help connect independent bookstores whose doors were shuttered, authors whose tours, like mine, were canceled, and readers who just want to connect with authors. And I've put some stuff in the chat for all of you. If you have questions, pop them in the chat. Don't be shy. This whole thing is going to be recorded, so you can rewatch it on our A Mighty Blaze channel on YouTube. It lives there forever and ever. It's also going to be always on our Facebook page at A Mighty Blaze, forever. Oh, Susan Henderson is here. Yay!
Hi, Susan.
Good.
I can't see who's here.
No, you can't see, but I can. Usually they put their names in the chat, and sometimes they're shy, so they don't. I've put up a bookshop.org link. You want to order this book. This is the book we're talking about today, The Heart of Winter. It's so amazingly great. It's already gone into its second printing. It's profound. It's really a profound book, and it's great for book clubs. And this is the kind of book you want to buy and give to friends.
And a great Valentine's Day present. Would you agree?
Yes, actually, that's right. That's a perfect Valentine's present because it's about a long-lasting love. So I'm so happy to have Jonathan Evison here. I've known Johnny Evison since we both came to Algonquin Books at the same time a million years ago. Jonathan was with West of Here. I was with Pictures of You, and we've stayed friends. And he's just, he's a New York Times bestselling author. He broke out with All About Lulu at 40 years old. West of Here, The Revised Fundamentals of Caregiving, which is still on Netflix, and it's really a good movie, but it's a better book. This Is Your Life, Harriet Chance, Legends of the North Cascades, Small World, which you can see in the back that Paul Jr. is
like
reading.
I don't get that thing off my book, man. That little dog gives me the creeps, man.
Again and again. And Lawn Boy, which is one of the banned books, which should not be because it's a stunning achievement of a book.
Oh, but it should be because it sells a lot of books. So.
Oh, it does? Okay, then it's banned. That is banned. Okay, so let's talk about The Heart of Winter, and then I'll be talking to Johnny. Okay, so the Washington Post called it one of its noteworthy books. It's in its second printing. It's about a decades-long marriage between kind of stolid-seeming Abe and free-spirit Ruth, and it's really about the way love changes us, confronts us, and what it asks of us, and what it takes from us, and what it gives. It's about two people who were never meant to be together, and yet they last a lifetime. That says the Cascadia Daily News, The Heart of Winter is a tender, poignant reminder of the fleeting nature of words. Book Reporter called it big-hearted and profound. Kirkus, who gets very cranky and they seldom give stars, starred this one and said it's a savvy portrait of love and devotion. Evison affords this aging couple a dose of realism and dignity that's often lacking in novels. Publishers Weekly raved, this is a poignant testament to the sustaining potential of marriage. And my favorite from Booklist, one of our very best writers. Don't you want to tattoo that on your forehead?
Yeah,
Evison expertly details the hopes and dreams, sacrifices and tragedies of family life. So, welcome, Jonathan Evison. Let's look at this gorgeous cover again. There's so much to talk about with this book. It truly is, I keep saying the word, profound. I think that's kind of a fascinating origin story of this book. You've said in an interview that you wanted to give your parents the marriage they should have had in this book.
Well, kind of. I don't give a rat's ass about my old man. I wanted to write my mom the love story she deserved because she was very unlucky and unwise in love. My dad left when I was young. She raised me single. And then when I was in my teens, she married another guy who was, not a great husband. So what happened is, my mom got the same oral cancer as Ruth. And I cared for her through it. I was the one that took through diagnosis, through the surgery, through radiation, through aftercare, and reading to her and sleeping in the same bed and helping her to the bathroom at night and all the whole ordeal that Ruth goes through with Abe. And as I was going through that, I was like, man, I just wish she had her forever partner instead of me. I mean, I know she was glad to have me, but so Ruth is not my mom, but I wanted to write her the love story she deserved. And as you can see, it's not a sentimental love story.
No, it's not. It's not. It's very, very real. I often say that there's a big difference between, the first flush of love when you get a crush on somebody and early love and it's all passion and this and that. But to me, love is really when you go through something bad, when an illness or a trauma, that's when you get to know who people really are. And Ruth is this amazing character. And you know what? You had it so that Abe steps up to the plate at the end. So it's an extraordinary novel because it makes you think about relationships and how marriage is not always what we think it is. So I wanted to ask you, my first question was I wanted you to talk about that, but I also want you to talk about how, given that you were raised by a mom and a really crappy dad who left, how did you become a good person and how have you sustained such a wonderful marriage and kids and so many friends? Because you could have easily become bitter.
I guess. I'm luck, biochemistry, I'm manic. So manic 2, which is like bipolar 2. It's the kind that I never get depressed. I'm just up, 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 up. I'm like, I'm relentlessly optimistic. I'm an empath, so that helps. I empathize with people. I'm a born caregiver. As a role, but as a person, and I'm just very grateful. I just whatever. It just all starts with gratitude to me. I'm living my dreams. It took me decades to get here, but I'm living my dreams. I'm doing everything I ever dreamed of doing. And so how could I be anything but happy or grateful,
That's a great way to live. So this book is set in your home church, Bainbridge Island. What is it about that island that creates these almost magical situations? Not magical, but, deep, heartfelt, thoughtful. What is it about living on an island that almost becomes a worldview in its own?
Well, it is a very special place. And I have to say that the first book I said on Bainbridge Island was Lawn Boy. And that was I skewered the new island. That was a class narrative. And the island is now more of a wealthy bedroom community. When I grew up there in the 70s, and when Ruth and Abe moved there in the 50s all the way through, the island was someplace people relocated because they wanted to live on an island, because they wanted what I refer to in the books as the quaint inconveniences of island life, having to take a ferry to get to the city, having to drive 20 miles round trip to the store. This is why you lived there. Now it's a rich bedroom community, it's more like, a lot of commuters like Staten Island or something like that. So it's changed a lot, but I wanted to celebrate the island that I grew up on, which was just a very unique place historically. It had the biggest mill in the world at one time. It was the strawberry capital of the world. It is the very place where they intercepted the Pearl Harbor, but it was too late. And also, it's where Japanese internment started. So the famous picture. Yeah, the famous Capra picture of the little boy waving the flag on his way to Manzanar. That's Hiro Hayashida, my neighbor, who I still see. He's pushing 90 now, but he's still walking around. And that's kind of the special thing about this place, is that it's a rural island, but growing up here, it was not very white. It was very diverse. I'll just say that. A big Japanese population, a big Filipino population, a big native population. And so, and it's really reflected in the places, in the names of the streets and the businesses. And you really feel that heritage here. There's a Japanese heritage center. There's a Filipino heritage center. There's, so it's really unique in that way. It's a place that's very steeped in history. Like the Bainbridge Historical Museum is amazing. It's better than the Indianapolis one, I'll bet. You know what I mean? Just for this small little island, just because it's so steeped in history. So I wanted to tip my hat to the island I love, because I was pretty brutal on the island in Lawn Boy.
That's interesting. So readers out there, you should buy Lawn Boy so you can read it as a companion to The Heart of Winter. Okay, so I wanted to ask you about Abe. Given that your father was kind of a son of a bitch, how did you find compassion for Abe? Because he starts out and he's kind of stolid and we want more for Ruth, but he does open up. He does open up, and we do root for him at the end. How did you get your mindset? Was it just creating a character who was totally different from your dad?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, a lot of that was just about the dynamic of the character, and I think that was pretty common in marriages of the silent generation, where you'd have more progressive leaning women and maybe more conservative men. This is an era, I mean, Abe is like a Eisenhower Republican, you know what I mean? It's nothing like that is today. But yeah, I mean, I wanted to sort of ideologically opposed people on purpose. Just, I wanted this love story to be, as Percy Sledge said, true love travels down a gravel road. So I wanted every obstacle a marriage could have to be here: the loss of a child, marital impropriety, ideological opposition, just in every way I wanted it to be work for them, because that's what marriage is. Like, I mean, I'm going on 20 years this summer.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thanks. We're gonna renew our vows.
Oh, that's so lovely. That's so lovely.
We're just gonna yell them at each other this time.
That's so lovely.
I understand, I understand what it takes to make relations. You asked earlier, why do I have so many friends and things like that, is because I know how to be in relationships. You know what I mean? I know that they take work, and I'm really conscientious on like keeping track of people, and just whenever I think of somebody, or I'm playing a record that makes me think of them, or I see something I just text them right then. You know what I mean? So before it flies away, while the good intention seizes you, just reach out. Little things like that,
Yeah, you're one of the most generous, big-hearted people I know. And I want to ask you, what's important in this book is about the small moments that give birth to bigger changes. I mean, Ruth's problems start with a tooth, and then it just grows into something bigger and bigger. Are you always aware of this?
That's a really good metaphor, Caroline. You're good at this. That's a good metaphor.
You think that's a writer?
The cancer grows. Yeah.
Are you always aware of these small moments in your own life?
Oh, completely. I mean, that is what life is. I mean, life is composed of these small moments. I mean, it's what I loved about writing this book, is that I really got to sink into those more than ever before, because there wasn't a huge narrative conceit of bifurcated timelines and multiple points of view. I mean, there's 2 points of view, Ruth and Abe, but often I almost sort of obfuscate my, just with narrative daring do and whatnot. And this novel is, there is 2 timelines, I guess, and there's 2 points of view. But it feels a little quieter to me, because it's a deeper character dive than I think I've ever done. It's 400 pages of just really 2 characters.
It's funny that you said it was quieter, because as I was reading it, I didn't feel that at all. I thought it was more profound. I mean, I was rereading chapters so I could, first for the pleasure of it, but second of all, because I wanted to see how you did what you did, so I could learn from it. I mean, I think it's
maybe methodical. Methodical is a better word, maybe, than quiet. It's methodical.
I wouldn't call it methodical either, because methodical sounds like boring. I think we should just say profound.
Okay, profound. Brilliant works.
Brilliant and profound.
All right,
so
you
have this gift about writing about older people that makes them alive, and you do it with grace and sensitivity. It was in Again and Again. In the one about Harriet, This Is Your Life.
Harriet Chance, yeah.
Harriet Chance, which was also completely wonderful. It's almost like you're creating a new country for the aged, about what it can be like and all these possibilities. But you're young. You're still a young man. So what is it about aging that makes you want to write about it?
Well, they're fascinating experience. I mean, my first caregiving experience is when I was 17 years old and I graduated high school. I moved to Sunnyvale, California to live in a motor court with my agoraphobic grandmother. And it was a retirement community of about, 400 or 500 people. And I was the only person in the entire park under retirement age, under 65. And most of them, or a large portion of them, were elderly widows in their 80s and things like that. And so at a very early age, when I was just sort of like, blossoming from adolescence to adulthood, I was surrounded by elderly people, and I learned so much from them, and I became even more conversant. And I've always been conversant in the 30s and 40s. I mean, like, you know,
Right.
because I like swing and I like jazz and I like, you know, I like
Right.
a lot of the
Right.
literature from the mid 20th century and style. And so like, I think it started there, just at a young age, learning to respect my elders and just listening to them. I mean, it's really easy to marginalize them because they're always gumming up the line at the at the grocery store, at the, you know, at the pharmacy.
But they have
But
stories. They have amazing stories.
they
And
do, and you know, the thing is when you're writing about elderly people, the stakes are high because you're always, you know, there's always that shadow of mortality, and it's much closer than it is with a younger or middle-aged character. So like the stakes always feel high, and as you mentioned, just so much experience, so many stories, such perspective, and also it's just an elderly character is a really good way to explore just how much our culture has accelerated.
Mhm.
I mean, my mom's generation, look, they went from the Model A to, you know, AI, you know what I mean? You know,
Yeah.
so it's like my mom she has a cell phone, but she can't use it. She for a while, every time she tried to dial me, she dialed 911 because there's a 9 and a 1 in my, I don't know how she did it, but there's a 9 and a 1. My number's like 491. Every time she dialed me, and they knew her by name. They're like, lady, you know, I mean, like, you got to quit dialing. This is an emergency line. We have to keep it open. You know, you can't call us 5 times a week.
Has she read this book?
She
Has
loved
she?
it.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah.
I'm so glad. I'm
Yeah,
so
no,
glad.
that's how I knew everything that happens with the book after this is just gravy. Because I mean, my goal was to honor my mom and write her, and she loved it. It was her second favorite book by me.
What's her first
It
favorite?
wasn't, can you believe that? It wasn't even her first favorite.
What was her first
West of
favorite?
Here, I think.
West of Here. That was
Yeah,
your
she
first.
didn't love Harriet. She didn't love Harriet.
Really?
Yeah,
I love Harriet.
I think. Well, Harriet was also her identical age, and I think maybe she read a little of herself into Harriet or something,
Oh,
and like
okay.
you know, relatives tend to do that. Like, you know, you probably had that experience that, you know,
Yeah, I want to say
they're writing.
you're such a prolific writer. You're always like on your Facebook feed talking about the next book and then the book after that and the book after that. And I remember you said that your next book was actually about your brother who was a lounge singer. Is that correct?
Yes.
Because that sounds amazing. So you've probably finished that and you're onto something new.
I finished it, but I got about 3 more weeks of I'm just right now you know, it's kind of a baggy second act, and like I'm just sort of streamlining it. Like I'm not adding any more material. I'm really just shaping it a little bit more. So the arc's a little more palpable and so forth. But yeah, it was a really hard book to write for like 3 months. You know, I write pretty fast or pretty steadily, and for 3 months I only had a chapter because, you know, it's my brother, dude, and I had to give myself permission to write this book because he was a real stickler for details, and I was sort of framing it in my head as his story. And eventually I had to just release that and say, kind of like I did with The Heart of Winter, I just want to honor him. I want to write a story. I want to write him the ending he deserved because he ended his own life, and he died, you know, feeling like a failure because he never made it. And that's why I idolized him. And he didn't really ever understand that. It's because he didn't make it. It's because because, you know, he soldiered on in for the music, you know, in the name of the work. What really, really matters. And that's why he was my hero. That gave me the license to, you know, set out on this fool's errand of being a writer. I mean, I had a working example of somebody who was trying to live their dream and giving themselves to their music and putting it above all other concerns. And for that, I idolized him, and I wish he could have understood that. Maybe this book will please his ghost, and he'll finally see that.
That's wonderful. You have a question from Zachary Cole. How hard was it to get into the mindset of a crotchety, confused old man?
Oh, God, really easy. Believe me, I'm yelling at clouds all the time. Just put me in front of a modern baseball game and you'll see it, you know. Goddamn pitch clock. Why do they got to have a pitch clock? Who gives a fuck about exit velo? It's all, you know, it's all about analytics now. No, yeah, it's really easy for me. I look, I like the simpler things in life. I've embraced technology. I'm a Luddite by nature, but because I have to do things like podcasting and things like this and publicity, I've gotten, whatever, conversant in it enough
Yeah.
but I mean, really, I'm in heaven when I get snowed in at the cabin, you know what I mean? Or I like it when we lose electricity. I mean, I don't know. Anything that forces me to slow down is
It's
a
good.
welcome.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's a quote from you. Reading is at its best not an escape, it is genuine experience. A novel isn't a monologue, but a conversation, a collaboration between writer and reader, an invaluable exchange of human condition. Talk about that for us.
Well, it's almost anthema in literary fiction circles to talk about the reader like they matter. You know what I mean? It's so much about the literary tradition, maybe in academia anyway, is about being authorial. And to me, the greatest tool any writer has in their belt is the reader. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because it's about creating expectation and subverting expectation. And I could try to create, effects until I'm blue in the face, but unless the reader is dancing with me and doing everything I'm doing backwards and heels, it doesn't matter. It is a collaboration, and it's so fun. And when I say the reader, I just mean, my ideal reader. I'm not like, the 50 to 75-year-old female college educated demo. I just mean me on the other end. I mean, I kind of look at myself as the reader and the writer on both ends. And
Right.
I try to write the book I want to write. And I like books where, I'm highly engaged and the author is giving me the benefit of the doubt and asking me to collaborate and put two and two together and is creating expectations and subverting them. And so, yeah, I mean, I think all bad writing has the same thing in common. It forgets the reader, whether the writer's just browbeating you to death or they're being obscure, however they're writing bad, it's all because they forgot. We tend to bring so much baggage to the table as writers and so much backstory and so many thoughts. We forget what we actually put on the page.
Right.
So a lot of it is really just a matter of sort of auditing yourself, like the reader doesn't know that yet. You have to be very careful, like disseminating that information, because it's really easy to assume the reader knows what we already know. And so when you start to manage stories as just bits of information like that, the reader's there to sort of audit you. So, yeah.
Plus, don't you find it interesting that readers bring their own stories when they read your stories? Like some people who want Lawn Boy Band, you would hope that they would read the book and find the humanity in it and realize, oh, wait.
Or just read the book at all. People didn't read the book.
Right.
None of them read the book. They saw a TikTok video. I mean, that went viral.
Did you get letters? Do you get letters, angry letters from people about
I got
that?
a lot of death threats and things like that. Not so much letters. That would be a little more alarming because then I'd feel doxxed. You know what I mean? Nothing coming to my house, but my inbox, yes. Creepy death threats.
That's really, really creepy. Because you would
pedophilic messages and things like that.
But those are the people who need to read the book, because that would change their minds, hopefully, or at least crack their minds open a little bit, don't you think? You would hope so.
Maybe giving them the benefit of the doubt. I don't. I mean, we're dealing with sort of a mentally lazy sort of person.
Right.
I think that. I mean, look, all it took for them to send me a death threat was seeing a video on TikTok. I mean, that's all they needed to try to like threaten somebody's life. So that tells me that that's not.
Right.
I don't think that's the kind of person that's gonna, give me the benefit of the doubt and sit down and read the book.
So you've been a landscaper, punk rocker, caregiver, radio telemarketer, and you broke through at 40 with All About Lulu. What?
39, which is a source of pride.
39.
Yes, just
39.
under the radar. Just under the radar.
Did you always know you wanted to be a writer? Was that always percolating in you?
Yeah,
Third grade. Okay, so what kept you from giving up? Because I know there's one story where you buried a novel.
I buried 3 novels. Yeah,
3 novels, right?
The short answer is I just need the work. I mean, the work's really important. Selling books is great. Awards, whatever, all the accolades, any of that. I mean, it's great to have a readership because the goal is to not write in a vacuum, but I just need the work. I wrote 8 books before anybody published me, and I wasn't like, okay, I got it the next time. I mean, I was barely doing my due diligence. I mean, I was just sending out manuscripts blindly to office buildings in New York until I finally got wise. I probably could have started publishing a lot earlier if I'd had any savvy about that stuff. But the fact is I have to write. I love it. I'm hell to live with if I don't. If I don't write for 2, it's the only way to ground myself.
I feel like
sex, exercise, copious drinking, and work. Those are the 4. That's how I self-medicate.
Yeah, I feel if I don't write, I feel like I become verging on my mental health starts to fracture.
That's very grounding.
Very, very grounding. Your work always has a sense of this shimmering hope. So I have to ask you, do you think that hope is going to prevail in our country?
I don't know. Mine is. I mean, I think the first step is just to turn off the news cycle some of the time. You know what I mean? I see a lot of. It's a dark time for sure, and I don't think. I mean, if you're just going to be tuned into that all the time and hand wringing, it's
right. It's bad. It's bad.
I know. And here I am, a, middle-aged cisgender white guy going, it's no big deal. I don't mean that. I mean, Jesus.
Right.
I mean, I fear for my Chicano friends and my non-binary friends and, people with medical conditions. I know that this is really dark and really hard. Will hope prevail? I mean, hope always prevails. I mean, look, people made it through the Holocaust, and the human capacity to hope is really boundless, I think.
Right.
I mean, it's our greatest survival mechanism.
So I happen to really hate AI. How do you feel about it? Oh my God, every time you lift that can
I know. Look, do you know what it is? I don't know what's going on. It's red. That is the hallway from The Shining. I don't know what's happening. I've entered a 4th dimension. I don't know what's happening.
Please do not have that kid come on his tricycle.
I actually do know what's happening.
What is it?
Well, I think I have a okay, so it's happening on green surfaces. So it's a green screen issue, right? So I think I have that background loaded up somewhere for Zooms or somewhere in my computer. I'm sorry to demystify it because I'd kind of rather freak people out, but I think that's what's happening. Okay. I forgot what the question was.
AI. What do you think about AI? I mean, I know writers who use it to get factual information, but a lot of times I feel like AI is wrong. And I actually know a writer who, it was kind of alarming actually, who is using AI for plot.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are they doing?
I don't think that's.
Do they want to be a writer? I mean, I don't.
Yeah,
I use AI for only one thing. I use ChatGPT sometimes when I'm prepping for my podcast, which, by the way, is called A Fresh Face in Hell.
Oh yes, I meant to ask you about that. Fresh Face in Hell.
It's on Apple, Spotify, wherever podcasts are available. But I talk to scientists, I talk to psychologists, I talk to athletes, musicians, just whatever. I just follow my intellectual curiosity wherever it takes me. But I don't have time to read. I get a lot of nonfiction books with string theorists and stuff like that. And I don't have time to read them every week. So I do use ChatGPT sometimes to help me think of questions. You know what I mean? I mean, it's basically the same thing as just Googling it and finding that information, but it's instantaneous. So I will say that it has been somewhat helpful in guiding me. It helps me, it's kind of a shortcut to having to read 10 reviews of the book, or I don't know. That's the only reason. I don't use it for anything else. And I don't lean on it completely when I'm doing that. It's just a starting point for my prep, because I got to do a couple hours prep every week. And it's a good tool.
Who is your next guest on the podcast so we can listen in?
Well, tomorrow I'm interviewing my friend Jeff Ament from Pearl Jam, but that won't air for a couple weeks. I'm a couple weeks ahead. I think the next one to air is I talked to two pastors from the Calvinist or the Calvary Church. They're both, which is pretty conservative. We talked about church. We talked about church in a way. I think, church gets a lot of bad name because Christian nationalism is sort of taken over. But these are two nice guys that are struggling to keep their numbers up at church, that are fighting the battle against Christian nationalism and people trying to politicize their church. And it's a really fascinating conversation. I think that a lot of urbanites don't understand exactly what church is in a small community.
Right.
This is not about the doctrine, the Christian doctrine. I mean,
it's community.
I live in a small mountain town, and your marriage counseling's there. This is where you go to the food bank. It's the center of the community. I mean, and so when people attack the church, and really they're attacking the ideology of Christian nationalism and so forth, it's kind of unfair. I like my mom's church is amazing. A little Methodist church, the same church Ruth goes to. They were amazing through my mom's cancer. I mean, like, it's such a great community. I mean, and
that's what it should be. I always say a lot of these churches who are losing people coming there, just make it into a community center where people can come, they can sing, they can be gospel music, they can be donuts, people can talk. It's the same sort of idea. I think when you're forcing people to sit in seats and read things in Hebrew or Latin or whatever else, it's harder to feel connected to the people around you. I mean, that's just my thoughts. It's just my thoughts. So I want to know, what do you do for fun and why?
Drink beer, play shuffleboard, make mixtapes, play darts, watch football, play with my kids, go to the arcade with my kids, take trips with my kids, just sort of live vicariously through whatever they want to do. But like my sweet spot is to have like my 33-year-old nephew who's coming over to the cabin this weekend, and we're going to drink beer, and we're going to play a lot of darts, and we're going to play a lot of shuffleboard, and we'll play some ping pong. And I love to compete. I don't have to win. I'm not that kind of competitive. I'm not that type A, I got to win. I just love to compete because I'm grounded. Like, right, when I'm playing a game, I can get out of my own way and I've got to focus, because when your brain's spinning around like mine all the time, it's really nice to have a focus. And that's what games do for me. So like, I love a close game. Like I would rather lose 21-19 than win 21-3.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I have friends that if they lose, I have friends that are so competitive that I had one friend who died of an OD last year who nobody ever beat him in ping pong. We would have this like bro Olympics thing where about 20 of my guy friends would come, and we would eventually the wives and the family started coming too. It's like, it doesn't have to be a sausage party, just bring everybody. But so he would beat everybody all weekend long for like 10 years running. So he was like 220 to nothing, 220 wins, 0 losses in ping pong. And there was kind of a mystique about him where you were afraid to beat him because he would get so aggro. First of all, he was in the program at that point, and everybody else was getting drunk all weekend. So he's the only sober guy there. So he's already on edge. And when he doesn't win, man, he would get aggro. So like when you get close to like, I've beaten him at stuff before, and it was just miserable. It's like, I wish he would have won,
You have another question. So let's do this. This is from Mary Ellen Walsh. Thank you, Mary Ellen. She loves the heart of winter.
Marie Ellen. I happen to know that.
Oh, really?
Hi, Marie Ellen. Yeah.
Marie Ellen. That's beautiful. That's
my
beautiful.
sister was a Janet, and she went by Jeanette, so.
Marie Ellen. Beautiful name. She loves the heart of winter. Great book. Will you talk about Andrew Wood with Jeff Ament? Live Pearl Jam.
Yeah, well, I grew up with Andy. Andy literally grew up like 6 doors down from me. So yeah, no, it's impossible to talk about the Seattle music scene without talking about Andy. So we'll go over that. We'll talk about when, probably start where Jeff and I met in the early 80s, and when he was over for a weekend in Missoula, and then we'll go through we'll probably talk a little basketball, and we'll just walk all the way through his musical journey, much like I did with Steve Turner a few weeks back.
Okay, so I'm just popping this up again to tell people to bookshop.org. You can buy The Heart of Winter. And any of
Do it.
Johnny's
Do
other
it.
books or any other books? Look at this cover. This cover is really
Do it.
beautiful. Did you have input into this cover?
I usually do, but
bad.
sent me that one, and the painter is named Max Ferguson.
Oh, great.
And apparently that's his parents. He's a wonderful guy. Young. I call him young. I think he's younger than me. He's probably 40 or something. But he's
Wow.
a great painter. And you know, when I look at that cover, don't you just think of Abe and Ruth's 50th anniversary party?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah,
it looks so good, but
it's
apparently
gorgeous. Did you get a copy of it? A print of it?
no, but I will. I mean, I know there's a lot of point of sale purchase posters, you know, the big foam core ones. I'll just ask my rep for one of those. I usually get one of those for each book.
You have another question. Well, we're just going to talk about Johnny, but thank you very much, Robin. You're a master at creating fully realized characters when not basing them on people in your lives or personal experiences. Is it a struggle to create those characters? I would say no, because they're real. Whether they're real or not real in regular life, they're real in my head.
All they got to do is be full of contradictions and flaws and want something.
Yep.
You know, even if they don't know what it is, even if it's just some ennui, and they just got to want to, you know, it's all character development is all just like inching your way towards some sort of self-realization. Because, you know, a character is the opposite of stasis. A character is constantly about growth. So, yeah, I mean, no, I don't, you know, characters are often, sometimes they're just amalgams of people I've met and throughout my life, especially like ancillary characters, kind of stuff you don't make up. Like I got Mr. D, Dimitri, who owned the Greek restaurant I worked at. I've got a fictionalized version of him in my next book, and it's been so fun to write him, but it's totally Mr. D, you know. So sometimes people from my real life make it in there, but otherwise they're just amalgams. But more than anything, they're just a set of flaws and contradictions and desires and yearnings, and then the rest is just character. What we call character really is just about decision, you know.
Right.
It's not about what kind of hat they wear, you know what I mean? That's characterization. Character is about making decisions. So I just confront my characters with outside forces and make them make a decision, and that complicates their journey towards self-realization, and that's it. I mean,
you have another comment from Sue. She says, my kid's local bookstore in Boston is Porter Square Books. Did you know they've included your book in their new mural?
I did not, but hi, Susan, novelist Susan Henderson.
Yes, I want to say
we've been friends on Facebook since like 2000. I think even back to MySpace, but since like 2006.
Yep. Head to bookshop.org.
I did not know. I know that Lawn Boy was in when was it the Dixie Chicks or somebody was touring last summer, and they had a big Lawn Boy. They had a few banned books for their stage set or whatever. But I don't know about the mural. I've never been to Porter Square. The only bookstore I've been to is Harvard Books. It's been a while.
I want to mention The Flicker of Old Dreams by Susan Henderson, which is this fabulous, incredible, gorgeous, profound book, and you should read it. You should all buy it. When you're buying Johnny's book, buy Sue's books. And here's a fun fact about Sue. Sue, like me, loves horror movies. So send your suggestions into us. So we need to stop. This has been one of the best and most fun interviews. I want to remind everyone again to shop at your local indie bookstore. It's important for the community. It's important for the bookstore. It's important for writers. You can rewatch this on YouTube anytime you want. It most likely will be a podcast on audio cast in a few more months. I want to thank everybody for being here and everybody for asking questions. And I want to thank Johnny. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody, but Johnny, you stay. And I
want to thank you. Do I get to thank you? Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, so we'll see you all later. Johnny, just stick around.